This is a Tegu, and when they're this size, a 4x2x2 enclosure is the perfect size. But even if you don't have a Tegu, if you have a corn snake or a ball python, I'm going to show you how to set up a 120-gallon enclosure for almost no money in the best way possible. My name's Adam, that's Mushu, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles, stick around. Obviously, Tegus get much bigger than this, and you can put this animal in an 8-foot enclosure, which is where she's going to go eventually, but when they're about this size, I think a 4-foot enclosure is perfect. So Reptile Ready was nice enough to send me an enclosure. I'm not sponsored by them, they're not paying me any money, and I'll give you my review, my honest opinion on this enclosure, including the fact I don't like that the glass doesn't come out. It drives me crazy. But what we're going to do is we're going to set it up using the same sort of technique I've used for bearded dragons and everything else, but I want to make it so that it's not species specific. I'm just using Mushu as an example because she's due for an upgrade. When she was a baby, she was kept in something 3 feet long by 18 inches. This thing's a little bit bigger than that, and then eventually we'll set up the 8-foot enclosure. So if you want to see that review, let me know in the comment section below, and we can make a video about that too. So first thing, put silicone in there. Silicone it and then give it at least 24 hours to dry. And the reason you do this, if you have an animal, especially if it's going to have some sort of moisture or a drainage layer, it's just going to spill out the sides once you build the enclosure because the seams are not watertight. Once you wait 24 hours, or once the silicone has created a skin, you can go ahead and put your lights in. So put a basking bulb, a radiant heat panel, or whatever the case is, and then go ahead and put the brackets in for the UVB. Now, obviously this animal needs UVB, so we give her a 6.0 bulb, and then we're ready to go to put in substrate. Now, again, substrate is a really simple thing, and the only thought you really need to put into it is safe and is it sanitary? So what I do, I use a mix of cocoa fiber, a little bit of sphagnum moss to keep a little bit of humidity, but it also is going to create burrowing options. It's going to make it so that the substrate doesn't pack down too much, and then sand, which is going to do the same thing. I just kind of eyeball it a little bit willy-nilly, I'd say. In that, go ahead and try to do it about 50-50 so that the coconut core, coconut husk, sand, and sphagnum moss, so I guess 25, you know what I'm trying to say with the math. Just a general rule too, when you're looking for a brand of PVC, I mean, if you're in Canada, Reptile Ready is great. I'll put an affiliate link below, but if you're in the US, custom reptile habitats or cages, those are my favorite. Always get an enclosure company where the glass comes out. The glass does not come out on these, so I mean, you have to constantly move the glass back and forth. It's actually plexiglass, which I also don't like because when you put an animal in with claws, it's going to put claw marks, and then in order to buff it out, you need to take the PVC out. In order to do that, you need to actually disassemble the entirety. So I don't recommend enclosures where the glass panels or plexiglass or whatever don't come out because you can't clean them properly. So we'll just figure out the rest of the substrate here. And then the next thing you're going to do is start to put your furnishings in. So put the water bowl last. There's going to be a water bowl in here, but start making structures. So you want a basking spot. This animal is going to want a basking spot. I like to use things like slate, tile, bricks, whatever. And then you're going to put other things in there too to create opportunities for hiding as well. So what I like to use is sticks and bricks. And we could use a cinder block if we really wanted to, but maybe we will use a cinder block. So now that I think about it, actually I think what we'll do is we're gonna use a cinder block because then she can actually hide inside of it. And it's gonna be the exact same as bricks, and then it's gonna sit on top of it for that basking spot because Tegus need it pretty warm. But also we're gonna get sticks. And for that, let's head to the backyard. Whenever you're doing something dangerous like this, it's always important to have safety shoes. Something great to help with humidity is adding moss to enclosures, especially enclosures where you can't use conventional plants for the most part because an animal might destroy them. Like if you have a very heavy-bodied animal like Mushu, she's gonna destroy plants. So instead, use moss. And the best place to get moss is, well, outside if you're in an area that doesn't have things that might harm your animal. So, and the best way to judge this is, would you keep your animal outside? For example, I keep tortoises outside, I've kept Tegus outside, I've kept lacerdas outside, bearded dragons, whatever. So I'm confident where I live, I can keep animals outside. So what's wrong with bringing outside into you? So let's collect some moss, bring those sticks in. And by the way, I was saving that big giant branch on my front lawn for months for my Burmese python enclosure, but Mushu deserves it, I think. I think that's enough moss. Now, of course, if you don't live in a place where you can just get moss from your backyard, for example, where you know that there's no pesticides, the safest alternative always is to go ahead and buy it from a store, somewhere that grows moss inside, somewhere who retails moss, whatever. So the choice is yours, just giving you all your options. It's funny, I was talking about how we can use bricks or cinder blocks, and when I thought about cinder blocks, I'm like, where am I gonna get one? I forgot I had to pile them in my yard. So the idea here is if you want to go ahead and sanitize them, use soap and water, bake them. Well, there's also that theory that baking bricks and rocks is a bad idea. So what I just do instead is take them from a place that was freezing last week, so it froze everything, and then you pick them up and you just kind of wash them off, and that's basically it. Don't overthink it, don't go crazy. Keep in mind, if you keep animals outside, these are the same things that you would use. So anything on them out here that's going inside would be on them out here when your animal was out here.
What do you think so far, Mushu?
So once you put your cinder block in, or your bricks or slate or whatever you're going to use to make a basking spot underneath the light, of course, you're going to put it in the logs and the climbing areas and things for them to hide under and hide behind. Now, tegus are a different animal. They're big. If this was a corn snake or something, I'd say, you know, get a small type container, like even an overturned rock, overturned coconut, something for them to nestle up and feel nice and secure. The cinder block is a refuge. It is a hide. She can also hide behind the cinder block. We're gonna add some plants. Now, my recommendation is with big animals, I recommend putting the plants either very sturdy, deeply rooted, put them in there months ahead of the time, or if you're someone like me who likes to make an enclosure and then put the reptile in the next day, the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to leave them in the pots and just make sure you water in the pots. I was gonna put a misting system in here, but with an exposed bulb. If the water gets on the bulb, it can explode, so I don't recommend doing that if you have a bulb. And the bulb will have a shield, but again, the shield is gonna be made of mesh, so the water can still get inside. So instead, I'm gonna put the Dieffenbachia in the back there, in the pot, so that she can hide behind that. You don't want to fill it too much with plants because this animal does need room to move. The point of having a 4x2x2 is lots of room for them to move. So with that said, let's put the zygo cactus, this is an Easter cactus as opposed to a Christmas cactus, in there as well. And I think we're basically done the enclosure, but there's a few more things I want to touch on. I always put moss in at the very end. I think that's just the best way to do it because moss is going to get trampled and when you move things around. So let's put the moss in. It's what we're doing now. Obviously Mushu looks adorable in this little moss bin. I think that this is the last step, the finishing touch. And then if you want to add any like air plants or things like that, this is the time to do it. And of course you're going to put your animal in today or tomorrow or the next week. And here's my thoughts on that, because there's a whole thing of cycling a tank or getting a tank ready. Basically that means make sure that the hot spot is right, make sure that the humidity is right, the whole thing. You can do that over the course of a few days. If you've done this literally dozens of times like I have, I think it's okay for you to the next day, like figure it out, right? You're gonna know the wattage to use, the distance between the heat lamp and the rock or slate or whatever. So you're gonna have an idea, right? So with enclosures like this, I have an enclosure in the exact same spot above this. So I know what the area is like and what the basking spot's gonna be like and things like that. If you wanna wait a month or two to wait for things to grow in, you can definitely do that too. I'm not saying don't play it safe. I'm just saying if you're someone who, I just, I like to do things because I'm busy and I know that I'm never gonna get back to it, I'm like that too. So go ahead and put a lot of thought into it first, then make the enclosure and then put the animal in once you're sure that it has the right parameters. Now that we've done some temperature readings and humidity reading, obviously use something like this Govee hygrometer thermometer, which is linked in the description below. Go ahead and buy one of those. That's what I use for all my enclosures. The only part to do left is to put Mushu in her enclosure, and I'm really excited about this. Obviously, we moved this down to the bottom because it's too heavy and we couldn't move it otherwise. We had to build it on the ground. So, Mushu, who's about 2 years old now and pretty close to full grown, this will be her home probably for the next year. And then once she gets big enough, we're gonna go ahead and put her into an 8-foot enclosure. And I'm really excited for that too. Last but not least, add some dwarf white isopods or whatever other isopods you want to add. Either way, you're just adding something to break down the waste of the animal, and then a springtail culture as well. And then the plants are in there to break down the waste of the bugs. This is truly bioactive, a great way to do it. I want to say thanks everyone for watching, hitting the like and subscribe button. Thank you guys so much. The Patreon supporters, you guys got this early. You guys knew about this a few months ago when I planned it out. All that and more for as little as $1 a month. Because I do videos on Mondays and Thursdays, that means I'll see you in the next one.